So, quick input on hard surfacing. Lessons learned through 30 plus years of hard rod and stuff. I've taken care of a lot of wood grinders. Actually converted a 1949 Pennsylvania coal crusher into a wood grinder. That was a badass unit. That thing could grind 2 950 loader buckets of scrap wood back to back in about 7 seconds. Both bucketfuls, 7 seconds, boom, done through the grinder and up the conveyor belt on the other side. But came up short one of the fence post caps, so I just had to blew up another ball here and just got done clear coating it and stuff for my fence. But anyhow, hard surfacing wise, what I learned through the years for the first 10 years, and this isn't any of it, but this is a regular stick electrode. I used a hard surfacing rod that was a solid rod like this blue one, and that works pretty good, but it welds like a normal welding rod. When you're hard surfacing your stuff and you got that natural arc force out the end of your rod, your hard surfacing solid rod is churning into the base metal and diluting itself. So when you use a solid rod, you almost have to do about 3 passes because of that dilution and saturation to get a higher concentration of your hard surfacing on the top. Well, after about 10 years of using that stuff, about 20 years ago, I found some of this stuff. This is actually a metal powder rod. Sometimes it's called a tubular rod. But this is a 3/8 rod. You can see how big this is 1/8 inch rod here, the blue guy. So this is 1/8 inch. This is your 3/8 rod right here. But these are hollow tubes, and they fill that tube with metal powder, iron, chromium. Australia, unfortunately, has like 80% of the planet's chromium, and that's what's good for hard surfacing is chromium. So it's a little pricey. Most all our stuff comes out of there, but this 3/8 rod, being metal powder inside a hollow tube, it doesn't churn and dig. It doesn't have a natural arc force like a regular stick does. So when you apply this metal powder rod, means how you don't have that natural churning and saturation of the base metal, you get a much higher concentration of your hard surfacing rod in one pass with your metal powder rod because it didn't dilute into your base metal. And a lot of that after that boils down to your rod recovery rates. I'm not going to say what brand I was using, it's good stuff, but the rod recovery rate on the hard rod that I was using, and I was running 3/16 rod, so that 3/16 rod's running pretty hot, you know, a couple 100+ amps. You're working your machine and your duty cycle pretty good. Whereas this 3/8 tubular rod literally runs on a 532, like 70-18 setting. So your machine's running a lot, working a lot less, you're consuming less fuel, you're getting a higher concentration because there's no dilution or saturation. The rod recovery rate on the other stuff I was using, and people need to check into that. I've ran into people that have welded for 15 years, didn't know what the hell rod recovery rate or elongation was. Rod recovery rate, the other rod I was using, your normal 70-18 has a 130% rod recovery rate. You get 100% out of the stick, the filler there, you get 100% of that. And you get 30% more filler out of your flux because there's iron and stuff in your flux. So that's how you get 130% rod recovery rate on a low hydrogen rod. The other hard surfacing rod I was using was actually 160% rod recovery rate, so that's pretty good. You got 100% out of your solid filler metal, and you got another 60% product out of the iron and chromium and stuff that was in the flux. So the metal filler rod is actually 200% rod recovery rate. Everything, the flux, the tube, everything is consumed to give you product. Now the metal powder rod, it'll cost you another $150 a box probably on a 50-pound box. Last 50-pound box I got, I think I paid almost $700 for a 50-pound box of this tubular rod. But having a 200% rod recovery rate, it goes way farther than this other rod. Right out the gate, it's going way farther because of the rod recovery rate being 200% versus 160%. Plus, you really only need to put down one pass because you're not getting dilution and saturation into your base metal. This almost sprays out the end. It's kind of hard to explain, but it doesn't run like a regular stick. There's no stick in there. It's a hollow tube full of metal powder and chromium and other stuff. So anyhow, this might cost you a little bit more, but between only having to put down one pass and having a 200% rod recovery rate, it literally goes 2 to 3 times farther than your normal rod. So sit down and do the math. You're paying your welder less because it took him a third to half long, less time to do it because of the metal powder rod, because you get such a higher concentration of the metal powder. So your costs are down all the way around. It might cost you more for it, but you're paying your welder to be there less, and the welder's using his machine less and not working his stuff as hard using that metal powder rod. So stuff's really excellent. That's what I've used for the last 20 years on all my loader buckets, wood grinders, all that stuff. Just superior rod. You get what you pay for there. So anybody's interested in any of that, just leave a comment or something, and a way to get back to you. I'll pass on a place to you can actually buy this. One of the local shops not too far from here that I've spent 35 years with, watching each other's backs. He's actually a retailer for it. So if anybody needs any good hard surfacing rod, this stuff's the bomb. It don't get no better. Leave a message or something after the video, and I'll get back to you and hook you up, man. Everybody be safe.